Hey guys, what's up? Misha from GGD here, and today we're going to be talking about my FRANKENKIT. That's right, that is not a euphemism right there. It's actually something I've started to do a little bit more recently, which is combining some of the GGD kits, and it's something that can be done fairly easily in Kontakt. It might be something that you guys don't realize that you could actually take advantage of, especially if you own multiple GGD libraries. You can stack them and layer them in strategic ways. And one of the reasons that I like to do this is because I feel like I can extract a bit more of a unique sound. Rather than just using the same source tones as everyone else, I'm blending them. And, when you're using samples, especially when it comes to things like kicks and snares, you can actually layer them very effectively. People will do this. They'll layer samples over live drums, and it'll give it a different character. You can get quite a bit of different characters out of, like, for example, if you have a very deep snare, you could layer it with a kind of cranked sample, and it might sound like it doesn't work, but it can sometimes have a cool characteristic. So I'm actually going to demonstrate this a little bit, showing shouldn't be showing you guys this stuff, but whatever, we're all friends. So this is something I'm working on for the solo album. It's one of the songs. It's pretty much there. I did this as a demo for my JST plugin, but I kind of finished it up for the solo album. But that's the kind of vibe there, right? Now I think, sorry, that delay is going to go forever. Now, I think that this is a pretty cool sounding kit. I was able to shape this in a way where I was able to get the snare that I wanted and the kick that I wanted and get something that's a little bit more unique than just using one of the kits. So this is what we're using right now. We're using a combination of P4, we're using Invasion, we're using the original Halpern library, and actually specifically the P3 kick and snare. And then we're using Modern and Massive. There are some rules that you have to be aware of. Well, call them rules. I guess you can always break rules, but these are the sort of guidelines that I like to use. I don't find that blending cymbals works because they're very unique sounds. It'll just sort of like sound like two cymbals. So generally you want to pick and choose. Now I am using cymbals across different libraries, as you can see. So I'm using, like, say, the hi-hat and the China stack, and actually I think Ride and some splashes from the P4 kit. But I'm mainly using this Invasion complement because you get so many cymbals and they're fantastic. And with both of these I'm using kick and snare. They sound different, but they are layering. So those things will be layered. Toms, I find, because they're usually so unique and because they'll almost make like a chord, you don't really want to layer toms. So that I picked, I really, really like the Modern and Massive toms for like a lower tune thing. Like, they're just these big fat toms. And I also have, maybe I don't have the kick in there, but I definitely have the snare. And this is like a very different sound from this. You're almost getting like I'm using this almost more for like the white noise of the snares. Like, it's almost more of a bottom snare sound, if that makes sense. And then I'm using a little tiny bit. You don't even hear it. Let's not even count it. I'm really using this for the snare because the P3 main snare is just, there was some mojo when that was captured. Like, that is just, it's a fantastic snare. And I find that all this stuff together, I find that, well, I always go between wanting like a really big snare or like those more Deftonesy snares that have a lot of crack. The problem with those Deftonesy ones, though, is they can fall apart in the mix. They can get very paper thin. So I like the character of it, but I want it to have more weight. And this is something that can be done. So I'm layering this, which I believe, okay, let's see. There's the reference brass, which is just a workhorse. That is one of the best snare drums on the market. And then I'm combining that with another brass snare, which is this 13x6 Yamaha recording custom, which was a phenomenal snare. It was one of my favorite ones of the Invasion session. And, you know, it's similar enough. It's a bit drier, right? And then this is Matt's Mapex Wraith snare, which I believe is also brass. So we're sensing a theme here. And then this was the birch snare. So it's the only wood snare, the Yamaha one, but it's kind of low. And also with the Invasion one, I've also got the sample, the Pop Rocket sample, which I don't think we can separate from it, but that is influencing the sound. Like if I were to change this to Beeftown, you don't hear a massive difference, do we? It's not very loud, but you know, you can hear it here. That's the sample. I just think that it sounds, it seems to work with that snare really well and with the sound I'm going for. So I am going for this more Deftonesy thing, but where hopefully has enough body to actually cut through. And with the kick, you know, I want a good mix of click, but you know, I hate it when kicks are like too clicky, like too death metal sounding. So we've got some body here. And I think it's just those two, actually. I mean, we're getting, like, as I said, a hair of this, but I think I've removed most of it because I realized it wasn't really adding very much. And then the rest is just sort of complementing. So we've got a huge cymbal array. Now, the next thing you may be wondering is, like, how do I route this? So here's what I'm doing. I'm doing this in Cubase, but you could do this with a piano roll. It would effectively be the same thing. But I'm just making sure that for cymbals across the libraries, they're not sharing keys. So this is where it can be very useful to, when you start out, you just hit clear map. Now, I have this all running. I don't want to have to reprogram this in front of you guys. It does take a second to set it up, but once you have it set up, then it can just be your template like I've got, and then you never have to set it up again. So it's great. So you could clear the maps on everything to make sure that nothing's mapped, and then you just map the parts of the kit that you actually want. So if we look here, you know, like things like the kick, this is triggering all of those. The flam, I'd wondered if like triggering all the flam samples would make it flam against itself, ironically, but seems to work, so I left it like the way it is. I was using the P4 kit, which is why this is like a 4-tom kit, but Modern and Massive is 3, so I've just assigned 1 and 2 to be the same tom, and then, you know, that way we don't have to reprogram anything really. Then things like the cymbals, you know, so I've chosen the P4 kit for the hi-hat. You should just choose one hi-hat, stick to all those articulations. So there we go. And then for all the cymbals, these are all Invasion, except I really like the China from P4, so I made sure to map that, and I believe, yeah, this is an Invasion left China. But, you know, they sound, some of these are in different rooms, but it sounds pretty consistent. Like P4 and Invasion were recorded in different rooms, but seems to be working. And what I'm doing on the actual routing end is just making sure they're all going to the same outputs, like the summed outputs, like the kicks from all these will go to the same, the overheads will all go to the same, the rooms will all go to the same. So it's like you're then mixing these summed samples. I hope that makes sense, but it's sort of like you're treating it like that was the source tone all along, you know? And if you find sounds that sort of complement each other when you're stacking them, it should actually work really well when you're programming. It shouldn't, you know, if it's not working, then maybe try some different sounds. But yeah, you would just basically make sure that all the pieces that you're using, like here you can see I've disabled the toms, why even load them up? But you know, kick and snare, these are all routed to the same outputs throughout all the kits, the same outputs, as if, you know, you were summing everything, which is what you're effectively doing, and then you can process that. That's the way I choose to do it. So the bottom here in the mixer, you know, I've got my kick sum, snare sum, all that, and that's where I'm processing. So yes, this is a little bit advanced, but this is how I'm running my kit for the solo album. It's kind of a cool trick. People have asked about it. I think when people are asking about layering, they were thinking about layering 2 kits, and that's probably how I started. I ended up layering 4 because it works, you know. You can layer as few or as many as you'd like, but it's a cool thing to experiment with, you know, and in context, you end up with a kit that doesn't really sound like any single one of our kits, you know. Like, I do think that kit sounds pretty great. If we go to a section that's pretty tom heavy, like at the end here. So this all sounds pretty, this all sounds pretty cohesive, and that's kind of the goal. You might not guess if you heard this, that this was actually 4 kits, either stacked or separated. But yeah, that's the only thing that I would stress, is just make sure that when you are putting this together, maybe start with 2 kits if you want to experiment, and just, you know, choose the symbols or certain symbols from one, or you could use all the symbols, but just make sure they're mapped to separate keys. You'll double up on the symbols. Like, let's say, for example, you've got P4 and Invasion has a ton of symbols, but Mario Massive, you don't have like a ton of symbols. Now you can have an extra crash on the left, an extra crash on the right, you know, another China, all these splashes. So it's a cool way to like add symbols to your repertoire if you wish you had a few more symbols for P4, or you could do that and also layer the kick and the snare. So it may sound like I'm talking in circles a bit, but I do realize that this may be a bit more advanced for some of our users. Maybe some of you guys are like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And, you know, it's as easy as just like, let's say I want to add Modern Fusion, just clicking on this and it will add it. I have my MIDI channel set to Omni for all of these. So I'll just go here, change this to Omni, and make sure to map it. You know, this again is what would take time, but this is where I would just map, you know, hit this, and now, oh, now I've got the Modern Fusion kick added to all this, and, you know, I'd have to level it and whatever, but that is how easy it is to stack kits. So, you know, as annoying as Kontakt may be sometimes, there are some very cool benefits, and this is one of those things. It's super easy to stack kits. So, yeah, you know, and you get a little preview of the solo album, you know. And that's the whole song. God, that delay just goes forever. It's kind of funny. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope that this was educational. I hope to see some of you guys put this into use. Now that we have a bunch of libraries out, there's even more stuff to stack and combine. So have fun with this, and I'll catch you guys soon.